It is 3 p.m. here in Cairo. My name is Ahmed Nader, and now it's time for a comprehensive look at the events taking place here in Egypt and the world with Panorama News and the News Hour. And I have all the pleasure to be having with me for today my dear colleague Lubna Yahya. Hello, Lubna.
Hello, Ahmed, and hello, everyone. We're going to start right away with the headlines.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi congratulated Saudi Arabia on its selection to host the 2034 World Cup. In a tweet on the official social media account, the president said that Saudi Arabia will hopefully organize the tournament and make it a record in the history of the major Arab and the world sports events. He called upon God Almighty to preserve the kingdom under the leadership of the custodian of the two shrines, King Salman bin Abdul Aziz, and his crown prince, Mohammed bin Salman.
Egypt and China agreed on the need for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and for work to establish the independent Palestinian state to achieve stability in the Middle East. This came in a joint press conference between Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and Expatriates Badr Abdulati and China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Beijing on Friday. Abdulati thanked China for its support to Egypt's development Vision 2030 and to modernization drive led by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, asserting that the special relations bind Egypt and China. He also said both countries are deeply concerned about the current situation in Syria and called for respect for the nation's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity. For his part, Wang welcomed the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdulati and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi chaired the fourth round of the strategic dialogue between both countries. The talks tackled overall distinguished bilateral relations between the two countries, and both sides also exchanged views over regional and international issues of mutual concern, including the Palestinian cause. Minister Abdulati asserted the need to start the implementation of a two-state solution for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict under the UN resolutions. He also called for an inclusive political process in Syria, reiterating the Egyptian rejection of the Israeli violations of the Syrian sovereignty and targeting the country's military sites.
As part of his China visit, Minister of Foreign Affairs Badr Abdulati met with Ming Qianzhong, Deputy Chief of Great Wall China Company for manufacturing cars. Abdulati asserted Egypt's keenness on enhancing its car industry, pointing that the government had taken several measures for this end, among which was launching a program to develop car manufacturing as well as establishing a fund to finance eco-friendly cars. Abdulati added that the government had adopted policies that provide manufacturing electric cars with great competitive capabilities.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and the Expatriates Badr Abdulati valued the Chinese Agency for the International Development Cooperation efforts in supporting major developmental projects in Egypt. He highlighted the agency's funding of the electric train project in the country, as well as the launching of the EgyptSat-2 satellite. This came as the foreign minister met Liu Xiaohui, the chairman of the Chinese Agency for the International Development Cooperation, as he expressed his aspirations to benefit from different Chinese means of fund to implement more projects, as well as boosting bilateral cooperation through the trilateral cooperation in Africa. Abdulati also pointed to the importance of the African-Chinese Cooperation Forum outcomes. He also valued the Chinese agency's great role in alleviating the humanitarian crises around the world, especially in the Gaza Strip.
During his visit to China, Foreign Minister Abdulati met with the Minister of International Relations at Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party. The top diplomat stressed the need to build on the momentum gained from successive bilateral meetings between the presidents of Egypt and China. The meeting reviewed unfolding situation in the Middle East and their impact on stability, as well as the Egyptian efforts towards a ceasefire in Gaza and towards enhancing humanitarian response to the crisis in the besieged Palestinian enclave.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, Migration and the Expatriates, Abdul will participate on Saturday in a meeting in Jordan to discuss the Syrian developments with a number of his Arab counterparts, the U.S. Foreign Minister, the European Union and Turkey, as well as the UN representative. According to the Jordanian Foreign Ministry, the meeting that will be held in Aqaba will discuss means to boost an integral Syrian political operation to complete the transition in the spirit of the UN Security Council resolutions in order to achieve the ambitions of the Syrian people and to preserve the Syrian institutions and its regional stability.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Friday he discussed the imperative of continued U.S.-Turkish efforts to keep Daesh terrorist group down in Syria. In meeting with Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan in Ankara, it's Blinken's 12th trip to the Mideast since the Israeli war of aggression began in Gaza last year, but first since the ouster of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad.
The Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that he has ordered the military to prepare to remain throughout the winter in the buffer zone between the Israeli and the Syrian forces on the strategic Golan Heights. The Israeli occupation forces seized the demilitarized zone on Sunday, just hours after the Syrian armed faction swept President Bashar al-Assad from power. And since then, the Israeli occupation military has launched hundreds of air and naval strikes against the Syrian military assets, targeting everything from chemical weapon stores to the air defenses to prevent them from falling into the rebel hands. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry condemned the fresh brutal massacre committed by the Israeli occupation forces in the Gaza Nusayrat camp, saying that it is a direct result of the failure by the international community and the United Nations to put its decisions into force. The statement said that the Israeli was striving to increase the toll of its crimes and to continue systematic destruction of the Gaza Strip in order to turn it into unsuitable for people to live in.
U.S. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan expressed cautious optimism that conditions were ripe for halting the long-running Israeli war in Gaza before U.S. President Joe Biden's administration leaves office. Sullivan was in Israel on a regional tour. Sullivan said the rapid-fire changes across the region have improved the chances for success. He also said there has been good cooperation with the incoming U.S. administration, with widespread agreement between them.
Lebanon's health ministry said that an Israeli air attack killed at least one person and wounded others on Thursday in the Lebanese border town of Khayam, less than a day after the Israeli troops handed the hilltop village back to the Lebanese army in coordination with the UN peacekeepers. Prime Minister Najib Mikati condemned the Israeli attack, saying it violated a ceasefire agreement reached on November the 27th. Mikati said it was the parties that sponsored the ceasefire agreement must act to curb the Israeli aggression. Near-daily attacks by Israel during the ceasefire, mostly in southern Lebanon, have killed at least 29 people and wounded 27 others.
Ukraine said that it was fending off a new missile attack on its energy system, the latest in Russia's campaign targeting the war-torn country's power grid during the winter season. Russia has escalated its strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, plunging hundreds of thousands into temporary blackouts as temperatures hit 5- degrees Celsius. Moscow described its assault as retaliation for Ukraine using U.S.-supplied ATACMS missiles to attack a Russian military airfield this week.
China's defense ministry said that saying China was entitled to stage exercises around Taiwan as Taipei announced the apparent end of the massive military exercises not formally declared by Beijing. Taiwanese authorities went on alert this week and said that Beijing was holding its biggest maritime drills in years, deploying dozens of warships and Coast Guard vessels in an area stretching from near the southern islands of Japan to the South China Sea.
Deputy Prime Minister for Industrial Development and Minister of Industry, Kamil El-Wazir, signed a work plan with French Ambassador to Egypt, Eric Chevalier, to regulate the upcoming steps ahead of the implementation of the first phase of Cairo Underground 6th Line. The 38-kilometer new line will run from Al-Khusus in Qalyubiyya Governorate to the new Maadi in Cairo. Minister El-Wazir hailed the Egyptian-French cooperation in various development fields over the upcoming period and also hailed efforts from both sides to implement projects that aim at localizing railway industry in Egypt.
Oil prices dropped today as the forecast for the ample supply in the oil market offset the optimism stemming from rising expectations of the U.S. interest rate cut. U.S. crude settled down 0.4% to $70.02 a barrel, and Brent finished at $73.41 per barrel, down 0.15% on the day. This brings us to the end of the sporting segment of the Panorama News, as well as the news bulletin itself. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Lubna Yahya, for being with us today.
Thank you, Ahmed Nader, and thank you, everyone.